Joining me today is Dan Egan, Vice President of Sustainability and Utilities with Vornado Realty Trust. Dan, thanks so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Now, Vornado received the 2016 Leader in the Light Award in the Diversified sector, reflecting the company's superior portfolio-wide sustainability practices. Now, I know this is a little difficult, but if you had to nail it down to one project or initiative that best exemplifies what Vornado is trying to do in the area of sustainability, what would that be?
Well, I think that we've spent the last several years, many years, building a database and that gives us the ability to measure our energy in meaningful ways. And so because we have this vast network of sub-meters that can separate the landlord's consumption from the tenant consumption, it's really enabled us to do some more creative projects in terms of energy efficiency and energy reduction. So it's enabled two things. One, we as a landlord have a strong awareness of what our direct impact is on our buildings in terms of the energy that we're able to control on our own. But then the other is we have a well-defined other piece that's controlled by the tenants, which is a meaningful way to sort of start a conversation with our tenant base about what sustainability initiatives they could employ in their space. How can they change their behavior and make a difference within their own space?
Now, sustainability initiatives are challenging enough for companies that focus on one specific asset. A company like Vornado obviously has multiple types of real estate assets. What are some of the challenges there?
I would say our assets are concentrated in office and retail for the most part, which can be very different in many different ways. Thinking about sustainability and particularly, I'll say energy efficiency, the office asset and the retail asset treat energy in very different ways. Retail, in many cases, uses energy as a big part of their revenue generation. So when it comes to advertisements or lighting their space or making sure it's cool enough for their customers to be lured in the summertime, that's a really different way of approaching energy than, say, an office space which has more regular hours, which has employees that might be sitting at a desk all day, and so it requires a different approach in terms of trying to effectuate some kind of change. On the retail side, it's often a design decision. So what sort of lights or HVAC equipment are available in the space? How efficiently are they operating? When it comes to the office side, it's more of a behavioral decision. So who's running the space? Is it a large enough space that has a facilities manager that actually is controlling all these decisions? What's the culture like in that space? Are the employees happy or unhappy? Do they tend to complain about change within their space? And so it's a real variety of challenges that, as a landlord, we need to understand that are presented to the tenant if they were to put one of these changes into place for energy savings. And I don't think that challenge is going away anytime soon. I think that those two industries are always going to be like that and treat energy in those two different ways, both of which are quite challenging.
And picking up sort of something that's been through your first two answers about tenant engagement, what are some of the ways that Vornado engages its tenants to participate and help with your broader sustainability initiatives?
There's two different ways that we've tried approaching it, and I'll describe both, but the latter of the two seems to be more successful. In the past, and I think you still need to do this, there's the blanket approach, right? So your communications pieces that is reaching a very wide audience, whether it's a tenant contact on an email, whether it's something you're putting in the lobby of a building or in the Captivate screens on the elevators, or if it's a communication that comes through the property manager. There's a way to get the blanket message out there to all of your tenants, so at least you're reaching quite a wide audience. The feedback from that method is not always successful. So you don't always, or you rarely actually, have meaningful feedback that comes back from that means of communication. The second way that we approach tenants is, over the years, we've developed quite meaningful relationships with a selection of our tenants, many of whom usually occupy very large spaces within our portfolio, sometimes several 100,000 square feet. And that's really led to a more productive conversation. So if a tenant is approaching us saying, okay, we want to be green, or we have a corporate social responsibility program that we're trying to improve, what are ways that we can work together? those are really the people you want to start with, because it's already an interesting conversation on the topic and will likely lead to some solutions that maybe then you can use as best practices to repeat elsewhere.
Dan, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you.
For more on real estate and sustainability, be sure to visit REIT.com.